So what I have in my hands here is a timeline of sorts, which I have charted out everything that Sonos has launched from as early as 14 years ago, which started with the Connect M1. I mean, there were other players, but some of them are quite obscure and some of them are not quite relevant to whatever we are using on the channel today. I've left out the IKEA Symphonics, but it actually shows a very, very clear path of the products that they are making, and it might actually give a hint of what Sonos is going to release in 2024. And there is one product that they have silently launched in the January of 2024. So what is that? Let's stay on to the video and find out. So I'm going to step through this timeline because everything is in a mess right here. If I show you everything all at once, you're not going to be able to digest it. Now it's going to come up a bit small and it's probably going to take up a bit of the screen and all the fonts are going to be a little bit too small, so just bear with me. Maybe I'll blow it up to full screen for you to take reference should you need to throughout the video. Now I'm going to start off with its home theater products, the Soundbars. Now in yellow, you'll see on this timeline, Sonos launched the Playbar in 2013. That is the first soundbar that they have launched to the market, right? Before that, they were all the speakers. So following that, we have the Playbase, which is 4 years later in 2017. Now the Playbase is kind of like a weird, it's not even like a soundbar, it's like a slab and it's meant to go under the TV stand, and it has a built-in subwoofer, a little bit small, but it is still a mini subwoofer, micro subwoofer if I may, which is built into the soundbar. The sound was pretty reasonable. Everybody was happy with the Playbar and the Playbase until they came up with the Beam Gen 1. Now the Beam Gen 1 is really small, it's just over 2 feet wide, and it actually provided quite decent sound for something of that compact factor. Now the Playbase was then kind of like forgotten because it doesn't fit into most TV consoles. Is actually too big for most TV consoles. So unless you have a freestanding TV, it's not likely to work. And the Beam Gen 1 actually performed pretty well and was selling very well in the year of 2018. And fast forward 2 more years in 2020, that was when Sonos really took the world by storm, right? Releasing the Sonos Arc. And the Sonos Arc was an Atmos capable soundbar, 11 drivers, 11 amplifiers, delivering 2 upward drivers. So that for Atmos effect was really the key to clinching the market in the home theater setup. And following that, in about a year's time in 2021, they actually came out with the Beam Gen 2, which was also capable of processing Atmos, as opposed to the Beam Gen 1, which couldn't process Atmos. And in another year's time, the Sonos Ray was launched. The Sonos Ray was a lot smaller. It was meant to fit into very tight spaces, and it uses optical input rather than HDMI eARC or ARC input. So the yellow boxes kind of sum up the launch timelines of all the soundbars that Sonos has released. Now, on a related note, we'll go on to the subwoofers, right? So the subwoofer, you will notice that it was launched in 2012, which was even before the first Playbar. But note that Sonos started making speakers for stereo speakers and speakers for music before the soundbar. So the subwoofer was meant to work with those, but it also worked with the Playbar, which greatly enhances musical performance as well as movie watching performance. And 4 years later, they released the Sub Gen 2. And 4 years after the Sub Gen 2, they released the Sub Gen 3 in 2020, coinciding with the Sonos Arc launch. And they have another Sub Mini, which was launched 2 years after the Sub Gen 3, and that was launched in 2022. So the subwoofers that you can get today, one is the Gen 3, which is the bigger one, and one is the Sub Mini, which is a smaller one, both of which are 2 years apart and within 4 years, within the last 4 years of launch. So you got your soundbar and you got your subwoofer. And next we'll move on to the green boxes. The green boxes are for the surround speakers. The surround speakers can be used independently. Almost all of them can be used independently as music or stereo speakers, but they can also be paired to any of the soundbars that Sonos makes. And you will have the Play 5 Gen 1 launching as far back as 2009. That's a good 15 years 15 years now, and I'm saying it out loud. 15 years ago, the Play 5 Gen 1. It was followed by the Play 3 in 2011, and 2013 saw the Play 1. So you have your Play 5, Play 3s, and Play 1s completing the 135 range of products, which basically allows you to find a speaker of a suitable budget or for your room size. The Play 5 was refreshed to Gen 2 in 2015. So that is 6 years after the launch of the Play 5s. And the Gen 1, the Sonos 1, right? At the point, there wasn't a Gen 1 because it was a new Sonos 1. It was meant to replace the Sonos Play 1, and that came in 2017, which is 4 years after the Play 1. And the Gen 2 came about subsequently 2 years later in 2019. And the 5 was only launched in 2020, and that is 5 years since the Play 5 Gen 2, which was 6 years since the Play 5 Gen 1. So this product life cycle for the 5s is actually pretty long. But the speaker that took everyone by storm was the Era 100 and the Era 300. Now, I've done reviews on almost all of these speakers extensively, so if you want, you could check out the rest of the videos on my channel. But the Era 100 and Era 300 was meant to replace, well, the 100 was to replace the ones, but the Era 300 kind of sat in between. It wasn't really a Play 3 replacement. I don't think there was officially a Play 3 replacement, but the Era 300 supports Atmos. It lends upward firing drivers, right? So if you pair a pair of Era 300 to your soundbars, you will actually get 2 additional rear upward firing Atmos channels. So you can see from the busy timeline for the green boxes, Sonos actually is focusing quite a bit on these speakers, and these speakers can be used paired as surround speakers or independently. So it is a very important product line for Sonos. So the next product line I'm going to bring in is even more special, right? And not a lot of you will be using this, but that is the It is not a speaker, it is more like an amp. It's not even a soundbar on its own, but let's see how special this line is. Now, there is the Connect M1, which was launched, 16 years ago in 2008. So the Connect M1 allows you to pair any speakers you want to the Connect M1 and still have those speakers, integrate into your Sonos ecosystem. This product was never superseded in the following years right until 2015. So a good 7 years later before Sonos released the Connect M2. And the Connect M2 was never succeeded by another Connect M3. It was only succeeded by something known as the Sonos M. Now the Sonos M is a very, very special device. And together with the Sonos M, Sonos launched a Sonos architectural series of speakers, which included in-ceiling, in-wall, as well as outdoor speakers. And the M was meant to work with those, providing even true play to those speakers. Well, the Sonos M has true play, but it doesn't allow true play to work on third-party speakers. And the M has a HDMI Arc connection, which means to say it can take sound from your TV and deliver it to all of these speakers, including the third-party speakers, even if you don't have TruePlay enabled. Now, I'll talk a little bit about this special product, the blue one that will appear at the end of the timeline, which is 2024. So Sonos did launch something which they didn't really announce in a big way, but it happened in 2024, and it should lend a pretty good idea of what they might possibly deliver for the rest of the year. So next, I'm going to move on to a completely new product category. Now, if you think about what Sonos did, Sonos was actually listed for open trade in the year of 2018. So 2018 onwards, there were a couple of things happening, and you will see from the busy timeline that they really got busy from 2018 onwards. Now, the Cyan boxes. The Cyan boxes are portable devices. They are mobile devices, and it started with the Move Gen 1. So the Move Gen 1 was battery powered. It also has Bluetooth, and you can carry it around as and when you want. Now, the Move Gen 1 was for a specific group of users who wanted to move it around, to bring it to the pool, to the beach, and basically for the outdoor kind of person. I don't really move my things outdoor. I don't even go outdoor much, if you could tell. But it actually made a whole group of people happy, and people who may not have considered Sonos in the first place started moving to Sonos, and that's what a new product category does. Now, the introduction of new product category is important to Sonos because it introduces new customers to their ecosystem, and this was followed by the launch of a smaller, compact portable speaker known as the Roam in 2021, and it was 2 years after the launch of the Move 1. And the Move Gen 2 came about in 2023, which was just last year. So 2 years apart for all of these portable devices. Okay, so now I've spoken about everything that Sonos has launched over the last 15, 16 years or so. And it should give us a pretty good idea of what their product release cycles are. Some of them are as long as 5, 6 years, even 7 years. Some of them are as short as 2 or maybe even 3 years, right? So what you may not have realized is that Sonos launched something in January of 2024. Now is the January of 2024. I haven't made any videos this year. Sorry, I've been really busy. And it was a Sonos in-ceiling speakers. Now I have in-ceiling speakers, and those are the 6-inch ones, right? And I have them paired with the Sonos M, and I use them to drive music, and sometimes I pair them to my Sonos Arc to drive real surrounds, right? The soundstage is not exactly accurate because the sound is coming from the ceiling, but Sonos launched an 8-inch version of that. So it actually claims higher excursion, better bass down to 32 Hz. And Sonos didn't make a big announcement. Now, granted, it was actually produced by a company or under a brand name of Sonos. So it may not be a real true Sonos product, but it does work with the M to provide true play as well. Why am I talking about this speaker? Because if you look at the first launch of the Sonos speakers, they came about in the same month of the launch of the Sonos M. So the M was driving the Sonos architectural series of speakers, the ceiling, the in-wall, as well as the outdoor speakers. And with the launch of the 8-inch ceiling speakers, it kind of like, okay, are you going to be driving them with a 5-year-old M? Because the M was launched in 2019, that's 5 years ago. So they have refreshed the Sonos speakers, at least the ceiling ones, after 5 years. Maybe the M is actually next up. Now, the M actually has a lot of room for improvements, right? Because for one, it was never able to handle Atmos at all. So it has a HDMI port. So if they could update the M to actually connect to your TV and process Atmos sound, then yeah, right? But it is a 2-channel amplifier. I'm thinking that the Sonos M can come up with a couple of tricks. It can start processing Atmos. It can possibly, maybe out of 1 M, drive both the front and surround. Or like what you can do today, you can have 2 M's driving 4 speakers to drive separately. But if the M was made more powerful with more power reserve, it could actually technically drive all 4, because then it will be able to process Atmos. Now, the other very important thing that I've been thinking about what the M can do is to actually enable it to be slave and paired to a soundbar to drive ceiling speakers to deliver Atmos. Now, this is an important point, right? For people with budget, for installers, for home, for people who want bespoke home theater systems, that could be something that can be used in conjunction with the Sonos Arc. So think about this. I have a Sonos Arc here. The Sonos Arc is throwing the front stage, the left and the right and the center. And I have a pair of Era 300. The Era 300 is providing the rear surrounds, including the side surrounds. And these two combination will be able to drive top firing channels, right? The Atmos channels, both front left and right, as well as rear left and right. Now, if you put an M in it, right, and the M is driving ceiling speakers, you could technically use those as the Atmos. So you really get the voice of God, which means to say the sound is no longer depending on the Arc and the Era 300 reflecting sound of your ceiling, but it's actually firing sound down from the ceiling. And that could make for a very, very comprehensive, a very all-enveloping kind of setup for home theaters, right? Making use of Atmos. So the clue, right, as to what Sonos is going to be launching in Q1 of this year, I'm thinking that there's a high likelihood that it's an M, and that's the M Gen 2. Now, there are a couple of other products which I think Sonos is all due for launching, and I'm going to list them in order, which I think they're most likely to launch, to the least likely to launch. I have 5 products I'm going to be talking about. One is the headphones, second is the M Gen 2, which I just spoke about, and then there's the Arc Gen 2 and the Era 500 as well as a Sub Gen 4. And let me run through the rationale behind all these, right? Headphones, personal audio category. So that is a new category that Sonos can come up with. Remember that since 2019, they came out with the Move Gen 1. It created a new product category and they were able to get more customers. Now, headphones is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Sony is into it, Bose is into it, Apple also got into it. So I don't think Sonos will miss out on this. So if they do launch a headphone, and it is going to be a completely new product. So basically, none of these colors here. It will probably be a new color. What, maybe purple? I don't know what is missing here, right? So that product category could really kick up Sonos sales. So if they wanted to expand their user base, their sales, then I think that is something that they should consider doing. And that's why I find that the headphones is the most likely candidate. But you cannot discount the second on the list, which is the M Gen 2. And for the reasons that I have highlighted, because they have launched a new Sonos ceiling speakers, they might want an M to go along with it. So yeah, there you go. And the Arc Gen 2. So the Arc Gen 2 is now 4 years since the Arc Gen 1. So they didn't call it the Arc Gen 1, but because that was launched in 2020, June of 2020 to be precise. And so it's going to be 4 years since. Now, if you look at the timeline for the soundbars, they have been fairly active last couple of years, and they are launching quite a lot in between. And we haven't had a new soundbar since 2022, right? So if they launch something in 2024, which is very likely, it will fill up the slot pretty nicely. And why the Arc? Because the Beam Gen 2 was just refreshed in 2021 and the Ray was launched in 2022. So maybe it will be the Arc. Maybe they'll call it the Arc Gen 2, maybe they'll call it the Arc Ultra, or maybe even a brand new name. I don't know about that. So fourth on the list is the Era 500. Now, they've launched the Era 100, they've launched the Era 300, and remember the Play 1, Play 3, and Play 5. So it seems that there is a gap in the product lineup, and for someone who wants something better, you should think about a replacement for the Sonos 5. Now, note that Sonos main product line are still the speakers, the stereo speakers, right? So all the green lines that you have, all the green boxes that you have here, something seems to be due, right? Era 100, Era 300 was launched last year. 500 seems like a natural progression, but the problem with that is that the Sonos Era 300 was already costing $450, right? A pair of them is $900, which is the cost of the Sonos Arc. So if you want people to pay even more, right, for surround speakers, then the soundbar is going to be a difficult ask. So if they launch the Era 500 at prices that is beyond the 5s itself, the 5s is going to cost you $500 each, and for a pair of them it's $1,000. The 500 is going to cost more than that. And if they're going to cost $550 or $600, then, bringing the cost to $1,001, $1,002 for surrounds, while the Arc is costing only about $899, $900, it sounds like a difficult ask. So why I think that the Era 500 may not launch before the Arc is because they have to take the Arc 2, raise the price up, so as to make it compatible in terms of pricing to the Era 500 for people who want to set up the whole setup. So I'm thinking that the Arc will probably go up in price to about $1,001, which is quite a lot to stomach. This is going to be quite hard for Sonos to ask for $1,100 for a soundbar, but that is the only way that the Era 500 will get in line, because I'm suspecting the Era 500 will probably cost in the region of $550 each, right? So $1,001 and $1,001. So that makes sense. So the last thing on the list, which is item number 5, the Sub Gen 4. Now, I really don't think they're going to launch a Sub Gen 4, but based on the product life cycle, you see the Sub Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3 being 4 years apart. The last Gen 3 was launched in 2020, now it's 2024. There's a likelihood. I mean, I don't know what other changes they're going to make to the Sub Gen 4 to make it superior to the Sub Gen 3. I suspect it probably should be smaller and lighter, but if they go down that path, then there is the Sub Mini. So it is in a difficult position right now. I would say that the likelihood of launching a Sub Gen 4 is actually pretty low, but if they follow the product life cycle, yes, they do need something to jumpstart the sales a little bit. So this is actually my take on what Sonos is potentially going to be launching for 2024. Which one of it will come true? Which one of it won't come true? Well, stay on this channel, stay subscribed, and if you aren't already, do subscribe to the channel. I cover quite in depth on anything that's related to Sonos, and if something new comes up, I will actually review and share with you what I think about the Sonos products. So, Sonos fans, welcome, and I'll see you in one of these other videos that I start talking about other Sonos products, which if you are holding on your purchases or you're considering the older models, check this out, and I'll see you in one of those videos.